Tonight we're going to hear from some distinguished guests. Later, University Archivist David Mawhinney will take us through some of the history around the Applied Arts program. But before that, I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Patricia Pollett McClelland, who has agreed to say a few words tonight. Patty graduated from the Mount Allison University Applied Arts program in 1960. She was the classmate of Mary McDonald. She and classmate Mary McDonald became weaving instructors for the handcraft section of the Nova Scotia Adult Education Division, where they were supervised by Ellis Ralston. In 1962, Patty joined the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design as associate professor and later head of the Weaving and Textiles Department. She became executive director of the Cape Breton Center for Craft and Design in 1988 and remained there until 1999. With administrative and academic experience, she worked to raise the profile of weaving and craft in Canada and held key positions such as president of the Canadian Craft Council, president of the Nova Scotia Designer Craft Council, vice president of the World Craft Council, and executive member of the Canadian Conference of the Arts. She participated and won awards in provincial, national, and international weaving competitions. Her work is included in public collections, such as the Crown Collection of the National Capital Commission and the permanent collections of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Art Bank, and the Cape Breton University Art Gallery, which is the one that has 4 seasons, and I would like to take it from them. She is currently an active member of the Rug Hooking Guild of Nova Scotia. Her pursuit of excellence is in her own work and her ability to inspire others. Her pursuit of excellence in her own work and her ability to inspire others keeps her in high demand for judging juried weaving and rug hooking competitions. Please welcome Patricia Pollett McClelland.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Colleagues and friends, my stars, we made it. We were last here for the opening of the Applied Arts exhibition in 2015, celebrating crafts created here so many years ago. Today, we celebrate the much-delayed warps, heddles, shuttles, and sheds, recognizing students of the weaving class and their development and experiences over the years. So much credit for this show goes to curator Jane Tisdale for her vision, steadfastness, and never giving up. We owe thanks to her and her team for displaying the work so beautifully. I can still see the little video of gallery preparator registrar Roxy Ibbotson high on the lift, hanging Anne Pickard Langley's wonderful coverlets. Emily Falvey and her team have created a stunning catalog that makes us all proud, and thanks to all of you from all of us. Mr. Ellis Ralston, our teacher, was a wonderful weaver himself and an excellent and demanding instructor. He inspired us to do our best, and we tried, not without some complaining. As you look around you, you can see that although we all had the same training, we were confident enough to take it and to soar. Although most of us taught at some level or other, we had very little teaching training. Our practice teaching consisted of Saturday morning classes for Sackville children. That put a crimp in the weekends, tell you. So we taught as we had been taught, emulating as best we could Mr. Ralston's example and guidance, also encouraging our students to push the boundaries, as so many of us were doing ourselves. I was absolutely hopeless at pottery, so in my 3rd year, I was permitted to put in extra hours and do extra weaving projects. What a blessing in disguise that was. I think we all appreciate Mr. Ellis's guidance and inspiration, and his patience, day in and day out, with us chattering girls with stars in our eyes. Sometimes I don't know how he put up with us. Being together all day, every day, we gallery girls were quite a clannish group, and some lifelong friendships emerged, and our careers intersected. Upon his retirement from Mount Allison, Mr. Ralston became the head of the Nova Scotia Handcraft Centre in Halifax. Immediately after graduation, Marion MacDonald and I, 2 Sydney girls, went to work for him there. He must have thought he was haunted. Joyce Chown graduated before I did, but I knew her through her work with Mary Black, and she later replaced me as head of the textile department of the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. And Pickard Langley was a contact through the Handcraft Center and Atlantic Spinners and Handweavers. Carolyn Manzer McMullen and Nora Gorham taught at the Handcraft Center after I left, and Don MacNutt taught spinning to my weaving classes at the Art College. Harriet Campbell Meacher has had such a positive influence in the Canadian crafts community. Known for her own creative work, especially her expertise in basketry, she has promoted the crafts and taught it nationally. As a board member of the National Capital Commission Canadiana Fund, she has recommended the work of many of us Maritimers for inclusion in the Crown collection. Personally, my greatest satisfaction came from working with the double weave pickup technique. The image is created from 2 layers, dark and light. Mr. Rolston recommended several shades in each layer to make a more interesting fabric. The first and last pieces I did in this technique are exhibited in this exhibition, Fruit Fantasy and the Fortress of Louisbourg. Sometimes I'm glad I'm old. I look at those graphs. The tools were the image, the architect's graph paper, a ruler, a soft pencil, and a very good eraser. The hours I spent, the contemplation, the tweaking were necessary to define the layers. Today, a computer would no doubt print it out in no time. But what would be the fun, the creativity, and the heart in that? As I look around this exhibition, I reflect on our adventures and experiences, our successes and missteps, and the lives we have lived. I'm glad we grew up when we did. We were privileged. We were Mount Allison students. If we didn't appreciate it at the time, I think we do now. Some of us here tonight graduated in 1960 or before. We remember how emphasis was on technique, tradition, and perfection. Experimentation, design quirks, and flights of fancy were definitely not encouraged. If Mr. Rolston were here tonight, I can just picture him taking it all in. Girls, girls, girls. But I think he would be proud. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty. And now I would like to invite David Mawhinney, Mount Allison's University Archivist, to come speak with us a bit about the history around the Applied Arts program.
So, good evening. I wanted to start with a big thank you this evening to Emily Falvey and Jane Tisdale at the Owens, along with the other organizers involved in making tonight happen. As many of you are aware, this exhibition possibly had the longest gestation of any in the history of the gallery. I'm very glad that tonight we finally get to see and celebrate the fruits of all these labors. When I was asked to provide some remarks this evening, I was initially apprehensive. I don't have much of a background in this area, so I dredged my memory bank. I did some sleuthing in the archives and came up with a number of connections that might complement this incredible exhibition. Initially, I considered what my exposure had been to spinning and weaving. One of the objects that had a place of honor in the house I grew up in was a spinning wheel. I suspect that most maritime households would have had one over a century ago and passed them down as an heirloom. Similarly, my Pictou County relatives had a yarn swift set up in the dining room of the old farmhouse. In both cases, neither of these objects was ever used for its original purpose to my memory. My first introduction to weaving took place in one of the white houses you see in this image from Sherbrooke Village. As a 13-year-old boy, I participated in a program called Yesterday's Children, where I dressed in period costume and was taught to use a loom for the very first time. It was a bit overwhelming, as I remember, but a great introduction to this traditional art form. When I began thinking about other influences, a distant memory came back of reading a book by E.B. White. I'm sure that many in the room may have read Charlotte's Web in their childhood. For those who haven't, it's an enchanting story of a spider who weaves hidden messages into their web to influence a farmer to keep a pig alive. It's become a children's classic. The relevance of the hidden became more apparent to me as I learned from former Mount A Applied Arts students to look at the back of the finished product and for the inclusion of little clues or cartouches that can personalize the artwork. There is much that is implied, in some cases hidden, to give the untrained eye further things to look for. I'm sure that you might find examples of this on the walls in the galleries this evening or on a touch table in the gallery behind you. Look also for the use of color to provide depth and texture. You might be surprised at what you see woven into the finished work. Historically, weaving has been done for thousands of years, but is rooted in the Neolithic period between 9,000 and 4,000 BCE. In ancient Greece, the act of weaving gave voice to many of Homer's female characters and allowed them to tell their stories in both of his literary classics. For instance, Helen of Troy's character in the Iliad, upon completing her weaving of the battle, returned to spinning thread, which has been interpreted to mean that she had completed her own story and now was giving voice to other women's stories after all the struggles that had taken place in her name. And I think that the quote from the Iliad is very apropos here. Closer to Sackville, we know that weaving arrived with European settlement. The word homespun originated in protest to the British Wool Act of 1699, which prevented importation of wool from the North American colonies. So we made our own wool on this side of the Atlantic in response. The creation of homespun cloth continued into the early 1930s in the Maritimes. Hand-woven cloth was initially tougher and warmer than the factory variety, which explains partially why its production lasted longer in our colder climate. We also know that most spinning was done by a woman known as spinsters. This 14th century word was originally associated more with the occupation, but that definition has obviously modified over time. The St. James Textile Museum in Dorchester houses a loom that is over 200 years old in its Beechkirk collection. It was a gift of Allisonian Pamela Black, who studied applied arts at Mount Allison in the 1940s. From their website, we also know that in the 1851 census, it confirmed that 40% of New Brunswick homes had a loom, which offers some indication of homespun production in the province mid-century. In southeast New Brunswick, carding and fulling mills were in place by 1810, but production was largely for home consumption unless the weaver was particularly adept and could sell additional cloth to merchants. The fulling or washing and cleaning process was often done with feet to work the wool, and in an interesting bit of trivia has generated the surnames Fuller, Tucker, and Walker. It was big industry in the 19th and early 20th centuries. For example, in 1870, there were 99 mills in Nova Scotia alone. Regionally, industrial production of woven textiles began in Moncton in 1881 when John A. Humphrey began his woolen mill operation on what is still known as Humphrey's Brook. His product lines were well known regionally, and many of the children of this family attended the Mount Allison institutions. Anecdotally, they were politically conservative and expected their employees to vote accordingly. And if you didn't, you could often be fired for making the mistake. This Richard Macaulay aerial view of the Humphrey Mills from circa 1930 gives you an idea of the size and scale of their operation. Today, this location is on Mill Road in Moncton, near where the Department of Transportation depot is located today. This next slide offers confirmation of the broad geographic scope of the production of the mills. The 1901 form letter on the left was completed by a priest near Rimouski, Quebec, asking for production of 37.5 pounds of wool. The mills were clearly competing with other operations in Quebec at the time and using French-speaking Acadian employees to undertake the work. The example on the right asks for 15 pounds of raw wool to be woven according to the attached samples, which undoubtedly were provided by a traveling salesman. In nearby Port Elgin, F.H. Kopp began production in 1917 of the everlasting brand of pure wool tweeds, homespun, and blankets. Those blankets are still coveted today and are extremely hard to come by. Local production of textiles undoubtedly prompted the Applied Arts program at Mount Allison to expand to include weaving in the curriculum by 1927. However, with the creation of the New Brunswick School of Arts and Crafts at Fundy National Park in 1950, things began to shift. Ivan Kroll and the New Brunswick Craft School in Fredericton were jockeying for position. Meanwhile, in Sackville, there were further tensions within the fine arts, applied arts household. Alex Colville, whose name appears on the report on this screen, was involved with a push to make changes at the university to improve teaching, which included the professionalization of faculty. Change is never an easy thing, and sometimes things and programs are unfortunately the casualty. This is Lauren P. Harris's response to what was written in that report. I suspect that his response also hints at the internal disagreements over the demise of the Applied Arts program at Mount Allison in 1960. The timing was very unfortunate, as we now know, with the resurgence of applied arts later in that decade, most notably in Halifax and Fredericton. Nevertheless, noted faculty and students, some of whom are present this evening, took up the torch elsewhere, and sadly, we lost an opportunity to continue their part of the Mount Allison story. However, tonight is an opportunity to celebrate the incredible achievements of those teachers and students. The works assembled here make it abundantly clear how talented these Allisonians are. In conclusion, words cannot express how grateful I am to all the Applied Arts graduates for your many kindnesses to me and to Jane over the last decade I've been at Mount A, and for your willingness to support the work of the Owens and the archives to keep your very important story alive with us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It's so hard with these masks. I'm smiling at him and can't tell. Anyway, I'd just like to take a moment to offer some thanks. Before we conclude, I just said that to several people. First and foremost, I would like to thank the artists, but especially those that are with us tonight. So thank you, Patty, Harriet, Carolyn, and Dawn. I would also like to thank the many lenders who made the exhibition possible, but particularly Ralph Chown and the Chown family, and Linda Langley, and Pickard Langley's daughter and her family, the National Capital Commission, the Museum of Canadian History, and the New Brunswick Museum. So this exhibition and all the Owens does would not be possible without the hard work and dedication of our truly incredible staff. I would like to personally acknowledge and thank Lucy McDonald, Curator of Education and Community Outreach, Rachel Thornton, Curator of Digital Engagement, Roxy Ibbotson, Preparator Registrar, and of course Jane Tisdale, Fine Arts Conservator and the Curator of this exhibition. I would like to give special credit to Roxy for the incredible work he did on the installation of this exhibition. I would also like to sincerely thank Mount Allison's carpenters who fabricated custom display tables and plinths for the exhibition, and they're always very generous with their time. Finally, I would like to thank Peter Larocque and Lauren Wickware for their contribution to the exhibition catalog, and Denise Milliken for helping us with setting up the small loom that's in Colville Gallery. The Owens is fortunate to receive funding from all levels of government, including the Canada Council for the Arts, the province of New Brunswick, and the town of Sackville. The exhibition and its catalog receive special support from the Friends of the Owens Art Gallery, a loyal group of donors and volunteers invested in supporting the activities of the Owens. Finally, I would like to acknowledge that Mount Allison University provides the bedrock of financial support upon which the Owens builds its exhibitions, community programs, and student internships. So that's the end of my thank yous. Thank you all for coming. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I can't give you food to eat in the gallery, but on your way out, there are treats to go. If you would like to take them with you, because I don't want you to leave empty-handed. But in the meantime, please enjoy the exhibition. There's also another exhibition upstairs if you would like to take a look at that, called These Are Our Monuments. It just opened last week. And chat and be merry. Thank you.